What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video, and in this one I want to break down what's going on with the overall market and how things are looking thus far. I'm also going to be talking about what's going on with the much bigger time frames on SPY and break down what the trend is likely suggesting. But let me first say that I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Webull link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Webull and deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 free stocks. Deposit $25,000 or more, you're guaranteed 75, and the offer ends in just a couple of weeks. So anyways, I just wanted to talk about something very interesting on SPY. When you look at this trend, SPY has had many instances where this thing was very bullish, other times when it was like bearish and stuck in like these channels. But when SPY was bullish back in 2023, you guys can see on the weekly time frame, we had a green week, another green week, and it remained green for quite some time. We had two very small red weeks before we just continued to be green. And since I would say like the past year, since May of 2023, when SPY is on an uptrend, it doesn't have two red weeks in a row. That's what's the trend. That's what the trend has been like. So it uptrended green week, red. We had only one red week, then back to green, one red week, then back to green. And then we started a little downtrend, right? We started a little downtrend in this was like starting in at the very end of July. SPY started to sell off a bit. So we got this red week, another red week, and this is what started the downtrend. Came up a little bit, then came back down and down all the way down into October. And as soon as November came, SPY started this very nice rebound. And notice the trend is kind of like perpetuating again. We never had two significant red weeks in a row, right? We had this first green week, continued to be green for many weeks in a row, came down a little bit for one red week at the very beginning of the year, 2024. Then we continued to push, small little red week, then we continued to push higher. We had basically two flat weeks. So this week wasn't truly a red week, it was just completely flat. This one was also kind of flat, so it didn't really have like big bars to the downside. Then we continued higher. Now we have this first red bar right over here. So this is very interesting to me. If we get another red week next week, that could signify that we're about to see a much bigger trend change, and SPY could be getting ready for a pullback. That's a real possibility, and I want to be very like open-minded to that as well. But what else adds on to this notion is the fact that when you look at the hourly time frame, and let me just zoom out and then kind of make this look a little better, but you'll notice that we had that high from last week. We had that high that was established around that 526 area, maybe a little bit below that, but very close. And since then, it's been on a bit of a downtrend. So it's been downtrending since. It's been making this high kind of like held, came down lower, came back up, came down lower, and just continued to downtrend. So now we have a downtrend that's being established on SPY. And once we lose structure, this thing could really start sinking, especially if we lose like 508s. That's when that's gonna be true confirmation of a much bigger downtrend. And this thing can fall all the way down to 497, if not the 480s, if we continue to sink like that. But in this case, I'm not officially a major bear. I'm just trying to say that I need to wait and see what our data is showing us. If we take a handy dandy Fibonacci retracement chart and we start from this top right here and we come down, you'll notice that we're approaching the golden pocket right up here. We're very close to our 0.618 and 0.786 retracement areas. And that also happens to align with like Monday, which would align with this like top of this megaphone pattern. So I'm starting to think that we're on a downtrend, and I think that this will likely continue. And if SPY needs confirmation of this, we have to see how it reacts to this resistance. So we have the 521 area acting as our 0.786 retracement area, our key fib level. We also have our 0.618 around 519.5, which aligns very closely to our 200 EMA, kind of close to that. So from from the way I see this, it looks like this. So we're on this downtrend, right? We have this high up here. We came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high, but we have to watch where this high is. That's what I think is going to be key for this week. Then we could start breaking down even lower like this if we continue on the trend. And we'll have to watch it if time goes on like that. What I find to be very interesting is how we have some catalysts coming out for the week. Basically, the first 2 days are kind of quiet, but for Wednesday, April 10th, we have CPI coming out. Will CPI help the market rebound and keep pushing, or are we about to see a very big rug pull? That's going to be a very big question. And if we end up essentially losing support, if CPI causes a big rejection, this could lead to even more downsides. You want to be very careful with all of this. But in my opinion, this is something very important and worth noting. From how I see things, SPY is showing some weakness. I'm also going to talk about the QQQ in just a minute. I also want to note that when looking at this, SPY is it's going to basically pop a little bit more. So we have to see where this high ends up holding. So to be bullish on SPY, it's very simple technical analysis, by the way. You want to see it break above this white trend line of resistance. If we break through this, get a back test and start pushing higher, we're going to remain bullish. But we essentially have to break 524 to be bullish. And that's a very, very daunting task for SPY, because if you look at the last couple of weeks, we hit 524 on SPY, kind of rejected. We barely broke past this, gapped up, and then we just fell down. We hit just under 524 again, then came down. So it's a very, very tough resistance. We also have, excuse me, we also have a very sloppy looking head and shoulders like structure. We have this left shoulder here, a head and like a right shoulder. So it's going to be very important to note. So from how I see this, this is looking less likely. It looks very unlikely we're just going to break and shoot past 524. What I find to be more probable is SPY does one of the two possibilities. We essentially just, we could see one more attempt to rebound at this trend line like this, and we'll see if this breaks or not. If we fail there, we could see a move back down. Maybe it's after CPI or something else, and we could just see this gap right over here get filled. There also happens to be this gap right here, where I'm pointing at right here, that needs to get filled. So that could be our next target as well. So those are some more potential targets. We'll have to see how this ends up playing out. And so far, the market's in a very, very interesting phase. Now, what else someone could do is we have to watch where the high is, because what if we fail to break this high right here? What if SPY, it doesn't break past 520, we kind of fail there, then we continue to sink. If we do downtrend, whether it's because of CPI or not, and we just continue to downtrend like this could be another Elliott wave sequence. So we could take an Elliott wave chart like this and kind of break this down in a lot more detail. If we look at our initial pattern from here, our first drop was kind of like minor, right? This is like the second drop, which is like more significant. Wave 3 is the really, really big drop, and then we kind of got that already. If the top holds, this could form like another drop. Maybe it's because of CPI or something for like this bottom before we see like this thing attempt to bounce a bit. So this is like another possibility. This is like a real thing that could play out if SPY does end up seeing some kind of rejection. I'm going to be watching that 515 support as well to 512.5. If we lose that, I'm watching this thing basically test 508, and we'll see if that bounces or not off there. But that's going to be our key level. So a lot of technicals do suggest the market could drop lower, but it depends on where we end up topping at. So I'm going to be waiting to see where we end up getting this top on SPY. And this is so far what the chart is like looking like, in my opinion. For the QQQ, it's very similar to SPY. Let me just call out that on the triple Q, we also happen to have this 4-hour time frame that's looking a little bit more in favor of the bears. We've been downtrending for quite some time on the QQQ as well. And the QQQ is kind of like stationary, but simultaneously showing some weakness. So from how I see things potentially developing, we have to watch where this high ends up holding on the QQQ. Is the high in at 443, or do we go a little bit higher, grab liquidity at 445, and then start sinking back down? In my opinion, it's got to be one of those two. The QQQ has to break past 446 to 447 to turn bullish. That looks very, very difficult, especially because we keep rejecting there. So I'm seeing some weakness on this chart that's been developing since March, and it's looking weaker than SPY. The trend is looking a little bit more in favor of bears as we're making lower highs, but we haven't broken our low and our key support right over here at this 433 zone. So I would say the chart looks like it's going to sink more. Could it pop a little bit more? Could we retest 445? Yes, we can, but I do ultimately see us coming down to 434 soon. This chart is looking a bit more bearish. On top of this, let me just call out some other factors out there, like Nvidia. If you look at Nvidia is also on a slight downtrend. If you guys look at this, the chart was up here at 970 just a few weeks ago. Now it came down, made a lower high, came down, made a lower high, came all the way down, made a lower high. If Nvidia fails to break past 908 and start pushing higher, if it fails to do so, it could establish a lower high right here and continue sinking even lower. So you want to be very careful. There are these gaps down here. There's a gap down to 825. There's also a gap lower. We could see a lot of downside if we fail to establish this high right here. So with that being said, guys, I think it's very important to be careful. How does Tesla look? Honestly, guys, Tesla is very stationary for the last like 2-3 weeks. It's been getting bought up around the 160 to 162 area. And every time we hit 180, we get rejected. It is trying to rebound a bit, but I do see a weakness in the chart because look at the last few weeks. It's been downtrending as well. And there is a risk of Tesla getting dragged down because of SPY. Also, when you zoom out all the way on Tesla, we have a potential head and shoulders like structure that's developing right here, like a left shoulder, a head and a right shoulder. And it's been downtrending as well for months, right? For months. Tesla's been dropping and dropping and dropping. We look at the charts. So, yes, there is a risk of Tesla coming down lower. I'm willing to admit that. We need a break of structure for this thing to really break. If we lose like 160, that's going to turn us a lot more bearish. But honestly, guys, I just want to say that that's what I'm seeing on the charts so far. The bears are gaining a lot of control. And I don't see this as a massive crash, though. I'm not saying this is a big crash. I see potential for the bears to step in and cause a little bit more downside. So could the market rebound a bit more? Yes, it can. But ultimately, I do see potential for the bears. I don't think we're in a big crash. I don't officially consider this a big crash or anything like that. I just think that this is what we're seeing in terms of our trend. It's going to be a very, very healthy retracement. Let me also add that when it comes to our key levels, right, we also have our big trends right over here, especially on the weekly time frame. I want to note that our weekly time frame also happens to show some key levels, key supports right here. We're actually well above many of our moving averages on the weekly time frame. But one thing worth noting is we do have our 20 EMA, excuse me, at 492. So if we lose 500, I'm going to be looking at that as one target. Not to mention, the daily chart also shows the same level, 506, and eventually lower levels like that. So I'm going to be looking at these key levels, guys, especially at the 50 EMA on the daily, where we barely closed above our 20 EMA on the daily. But if we end up losing this going into the week and we close below this, that's a sign that this thing is breaking down. And we could be looking for a move all the way down to at least 506. Also, the daily has this big gap down here at 497. There are more gaps below. I'm not going to worry about them for now. I think we might fill this gap within a month or two. So I do see potential for downside. SPY could pop a little bit more, but there is going to likely be a move down here as we have this big unfilled gap to the left, right over here to get filled. All right, there's also a gap right here around 509 to get filled. There's another one all the way down here at 497. I believe SPY will fill at least a 497 gap over the next couple of weeks. That's at least, close to 21 plus points. It's going to drop, or even more than that. So I see some potential downside coming. This is going to be a big opportunity, so we'll see how things go. With that being said, guys, the market is due for this. I think the time is finally coming as we approach the month of June. I do expect there to be some more downside coming. So we have April and May coming, then, June. But I think for April and May, something should be coming very, very soon that's new in the markets. And so far, we're seeing confirmation on the charts. We need more confirmation, but we're getting it so far. And the bears are starting to build momentum. So we'll see how this goes moving forward. With that being said, thank you for listening. Have a great day, guys. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you for listening, and peace out.